Welcome back to the OPEX Podcast, where fitness is explained. I am your host, Robbie Burke, and I'm joined on today's show by Coach Vern Gambetta. On this episode, I asked Vern if he had all of the resources available to him, how would he go about setting up a long-term athletic development program for the entire United States. Guys, this was a great conversation with Vern. I know you're going to love it. Stay with us. Okay, Vern Gambetta, it is an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you come on to the OPEX podcast. Finally, great to get together again on a podcast. We've done two of my own podcasts previously, this is our first one now on the OPEX podcast / videocast. And we as we both know, we speak an awful lot, through Skype every few weeks. So it's great now that one of our chats now will go out to some listeners and viewers so they can benefit. So I suppose there isn't going to be a whole lot of people who don't know who you are, who are either watching this or listening to this, but do give us a brief background and also give us an update on what's going on currently with yourself. I know Gain is coming up next month, which is a huge month for you. You always tell me, like, after Gain, you're wiped out for a few weeks, just the fatigue of like getting the event together and then absorbing all that knowledge. And any attendees who I know go to, just like they're wiped out. It's like a full, like, isn't it? It's like it's like early morning right to like midnight, almost burning the midnight oil. But anyway, I'm going to shut up now and let you introduce yourself, a bit of background if you want, for and then what's currently going on in the world of Coach Vern Gambetta.
Okay. Yeah. This is my 49th year of coaching. My background is really deeply rooted in track and field, which I think has been a huge advantage to me in my forays out into the athletic development / strength and conditioning world. I've also a big emphasis for me today. Let's start today, and a lot of this is through Gain, is coaching development, coaching education, organizational behavior. What do we have to do really to get people better? A lot of the things in terms of sets and reps, distance run, so-called X's and O's. It's funny, as I've coached longer and gotten older, those are kind of easy to learn. It's how you coach. It's the structure, the interpersonal relationships, the connections you have to make on a basic level with people. So I've been fortunate, as I said, to coach for 49 years, work in most major professional sports, Olympic sports. Have a fair degree of success, have some resounding failures, which, again, and which hopefully, I've learned from and other people have learned from. And I think the most important thing, though, is I started out coaching basically 11 and a half, 12-year-olds to 14-year-olds for my first 4 years of coaching. At the same time, I was still competing in the decathlon. And I would not trade those 4 years for any of the 4 years of my career. Just wonderful. In that case, it was mostly boys. The fourth year, we started with some girls. It shows what a different time and place it was. And then took a step up in graduate school at Stanford and got to coach at a pretty high level. In those days, it was the Pac-8. And going from 12, 13-year-olds to mature male athletes at the collegiate level, some of them aspiring to compete internationally, was an eye-opener. And then went a period of time where primarily was coaching women at University of California, Berkeley, in both cross-country and track, which I never liked coaching single gender. I would prefer to coach, mixed situations. And that led me to meet some people that allowed me to get in what in those days was called the strength and conditioning world, which was a new world. 35 years ago. You could count on the fingers of both hands in all the professional sports in the United States, the coaches that were there in those particular sports. football kind of dominated, but I got the opportunity to work with the Bulls and the White Sox for 2 years, and then spent 9 years as director of conditioning with the Chicago White Sox. Really visionary leadership that allowed me to do things that people still aren't doing today. As I look back, I get together with some of my colleagues periodically. They're good friends, and they're still involved in pro baseball. And every time we do, they say, we're still not doing the stuff that we did 30 years ago. From there, I started doing a lot with professional soccer and youth soccer. The favorite story I love to tell is one day going from the World Cup, U.S. World Cup team, men's World Cup team in '98, coming back that afternoon and evening and working with U12s and U14 boys. It's just a juxtaposition to keep you honest, to think, you start to think you know more than you do, and then you get back with the youngsters, and that wakes you up. So anyway, and then I've always done a fair bit with swimming, but I would say in the last 12 to 14 years, I've really, pun intended, dove deeply into swimming. And it's been a wonderful experience. I find the swim coaches really, really well educated, really in tune with with wanting to be better coaches, and in tune with this whole where the athletic development piece fits in dryland training in terms of making better swimming athletes. And I've got incredible opportunity to work with some just age group developmental teams that have, developed world championship medalists, and then some of those junior medalists, some of those kids have gone on to medal in the Olympic Games, and and things like that. So it's been really neat. At age 71, and this is really kind of the first year where I've pulled back a little bit more from the hands-on coaching to more coaching development, and really putting all my emphasis, a great majority of my emphasis, in consulting with the teams and individuals and federations. I'm working with the Singapore Swimming Association, and we'll be going down there periodically. But my real focus is on GAIN, which is Gambetta Athletic Improvement Network. This is the 11th year, and it's a network, and people come to an annual event, which, as you alluded to in the introduction, might be akin to torture. But it's about 12-hour days and then additional time, and it's designed that way. It's just total immersion in everything in regard to athletic development by application. So to me, that, and I guess I hope this doesn't sound wrong or egotistical, and I guess when you get to the point in life where there's more yesterdays than there are tomorrows, is you think a little bit about legacy. And I want to make sure that I'm making a real lasting contribution to the whole field of athletic development. And I feel really good about what we've done with GAIN and where we're going, and what the people that have been involved in since day one is just astounding to watch their growth and improvement. And some of it is measured in podiums and medals, but a lot of it is just measured in the fact that they're giving kids and adults just great experiences during their time in sport. Because, in a 49-year career, you can count the world champions or the medalists or the Olympians really on two hands. So if you live for that, it's going to be a very unsatisfying career, isn't it? It's really that are, better people. I saw one of my best runners last Friday night on the PBS NewsHour. He's at Goshen College in Indiana, speaking out about the Dreamers, and that very outspoken Chicano activist. That just warmed my heart. This morning I had a conversation with Juan Osorio, who's the manager of Mexico in the World Cup in soccer, and just a great friend, somebody I've mentored. And just to get a chance to talk to him, give him some encouraging words, before the World Cup, and wish him luck, and having watched Juan grow, as a coach, those things are what's really, really satisfying. So that's where I am right now. So,
great stuff. Great. So in the show notes, I'll put all the links to your websites and Gain, of course. And
okay.
I just want to say for a 71-year-old, you're not looking too bad, Vern.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I can't do some of the things that I could do before, but I can do other things.
Yeah. So, as I said to you before we got online, and just for the viewers and listeners, Vern is so great. He didn't even like ask in an email, what are we talking about? He just like, yeah, I'll get on, I'll talk, I'll chat. That's the type of guy Vern is. But as I alluded to Vern before we hopped on line and started recording, what I kind of wanted to delve into was athletic development. And one of the main reasons for that is that I suppose actually long-term athletic development is something I've been reading an awful lot on lately, because a lot of my research lately has been on skill acquisition, and in some of the books that I'm reading, they delve into that topic. So actually, it's right here in front of me, is one of the last books I finished. I actually had Keith Davids on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, on Wednesday, so 2 days ago. Fantastic, a great conversation. But this book here,
I've never met him, but
his work's amazing. Yeah,
he's a rock star.
Yeah, this actually isn't, Keith's not in this book. It's not one of his, but in this one, this is Damien Farrow, Joseph Baker, Clement McMahon, developing sport expertise.
Yep.
So in that, the one of the chapters, they go heavily into long-term like development and the models, and they ask, can we predict performance and stuff like that. But I have to show this, because you are the father, one of the founding fathers of functional training, whatever that means to people nowadays.
Whatever that means. Yeah.
But also, you're also the father of one of the founding fathers of athletic development. So I have your book here.
Okay.
I got many moons ago. I must give it another read. It's one of those books you need to go back and read every now and again.
Yeah, I wish they would allow me to do a second edition. They don't want to do a second edition, even though it is sold well, and maybe we can lobby for that, because there's
self-publish it.
I may, but you can't use the same material. That's a copyright violation.
Yeah,
so it has to be significantly different, and a lot of it isn't. Sorry, I'm the writers. Write to Human Kinetics and tell them that we need a second edition.
We'll start a petition right here. You've seen it here, people.
Start a petition, because I really want to do it. They had wanted me to write a completely new book, and I'd like to expand certain chapters, contract others. Bring things up to date, because a lot has changed because the book was published in 2007, but you turn it in 2005. So it's, we're looking at 15 years now. So,
wow, yeah. That's hard to believe, isn't it?
Principles haven't, but some implementation things.
Well, this is why mediums like this are good, because this is real-time information. So even if people have read the book and they go listen to this podcast or watch this video on YouTube, they're getting real time now, where you may have changed your mind on certain concepts or dated certain concepts. And that's exactly where we're going right now. So the sort of topic for today is athletic development, and the hypothetical sort of question or situation I wanted to propose to you, and you can just take this wherever you want to go, is if you had all of the resources you needed in terms of money and infrastructure, everything you need a coach. You're like, why did I agree to this?
Yeah.
You had all the resources available. And so basically, you are in charge of athletic development in the United States of America. What instantly comes to your mind? So as I was saying to you, is it would you have a north, south, west, east sort of headquarters, and they would branch out into the schools? Would you do? Would you try and do talent identification programs? Do you believe in that? Or how would you? What would the system be? Would there be screening? Would there be fundamental movements? And then how would it? Obviously, the big thing is we can't go by chronological age. We're starting to know it now, but just with this whole world of deliberate play and versus deliberate practice and skill acquisition and movement and just everything now. So I know it has a big place in your
topic. It's a 45-minute podcast, but
well, you fire ahead. So whatever you got there.
Well, this is cool.
We can always do part two, so don't feel rushed.
Yeah, we might, but I've always said, if you can't get your point across in a on point, then it's probably not a point worth making. First of all, money's important, right? And it's a big country. And so you have geography against you. And we are very multicultural, very different regions, right? You go from Florida, where I am, where the weather's really pretty good, to the Northeast, where you're going to deal with snow. So you have to take those things into consideration. So facilities probably play a little greater role in certain areas than they do in others. And that has to be taken into consideration. The number one consideration if I were offered to start a program, whether it was a national program, a regional program, again with a pro team, is people, is personnel. I want to find the mix of people with a broad range of experiences, and I want to find young people that are naive and knowledgeable and want to learn. And so we set up a paired, almost mentorship situation where we're learning on the job. Now, this is not internships. These people they're the real, they're getting paid, because I think we've taken advantage of internships.
A bit like the setup at Arsenal, like with Des Ryan, like
yeah. In essence, what he is doing there. And so we're doing a session, and then we'll debrief the session, or we're planning. We're going a plan, and then this is what I'm doing right now with the swim coaches in Singapore, and it was so cool because it was a 3-hour. This is not a digression, but it was a 3-hour planning meeting, and after the first hour, they took it over. I gave them the principles, and they were so right on. And so it's people. We want to empower people. Okay. And then we have to think, okay, we've got to divide the region, the country into probably 8 regions, not 4, just based on the size. And then what we've got to do, the most important thing, even before we go to out to work with the athletes, we've got to get the sport coaches on board. We've got to educate the hockey coach, the volleyball coach, the American football coach, the soccer coach, what athletic development is and what it can do. And just had a conversation with a friend of mine from Scotland today too, because I think sports science is an integral part of this. What the performance team can do to help make your athletes better, help make you a better coach. So we've got to set up so people are going to want to chomp at the bit, right? Let's start working with the athletes. Let them get them faster. Let's get them stronger. First, let's get the coaches up to speed. Let's give them a fundamental understanding of knowledge of how long it takes to get somebody faster. What's appropriate loading in terms of strength training for 11, 12-year-old versus a 13, 14-year-old versus an aspiring Olympian who's mature, okay? So I could summarize it by education and then ongoing education. And I would go so far, because I'm dictatorial, to make a rule that no athlete or no team can work with our cadre until they've been through an orientation, okay? In terms of, this is what the expectations are. This is what we can do, but we need your cooperation, and we need open lines of communication. Because I've often said that what's happened of late is a lot of times in the athletic development / strength and conditioning world, we're instead of preparing for the stress of the sport, we're adding to the stress of the sport. We're duplicating the stress of the sport in a search for specificity. So we've got to understand that. And then I think I want to make the divisions developmental age appropriate and gender appropriate. Because I think we oftentimes, first of all, we impose adult programs on children, and then we impose male programs on females. And up to puberty, males and females pretty much need to and should do the same foundational fundamentals, okay? But then once puberty occurs, there's definitely some differences we need to account for, especially in regard to strength training due to endocrine hormonal differences and that kind of stuff. So that would be the other aspect of this. But here's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Robbie. And when I started coaching, I taught in school PE. Everything was school-based. And I can't go back to the good old days. I understand that too many people my age spend too much time talking about the good old days and forget that the good old days sometimes weren't all that good either.
The black and white days, as my father used to call them. He used to tell me when I was a little boy. He goes, "You do realize that everything was black and white back then, as in like life, because we used to see the TV." And I was like 5 or 6. He goes, "Yeah, everything should be black and white back then." And you were a kid, like, really?
Yeah, right. But I would, because we have this K through 12, kindergarten through 12 educational system, and the facilities are there. They're still there. So I don't need to put money into infrastructure type of facility. I need to put it into personnel. And I would base this in schools. So like we have 2 blocks from where I live, there's a neighborhood elementary school. I would run an after-school athletic development program for all kids, okay, that would supplement, hopefully, their PE program. Unfortunately, for a lot of reasons, PE programs are going away. So I would base my programs around the schools. And then that's elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. College is a different story. The colleges have their own program. So, I don't know if we're talking about that. But I think that would be a key element to this. And then the money we would allocate would be to pay to people, the personnel at the schools, be headquartered so they know their community. It might be an all Latino community, a very, very poor kids with poor nutrition. Well, we need to have some sort of a nutrition component, both education and post-practice feeding or fueling or something like that, pre-practice fueling. And that I got off base here.
No, you're doing great. I have it all here mapped out.
And then what I would do is I would assess the situation and say, okay, what do we need in terms of equipment? Well, if it's an elementary school, we need jump ropes, we need benches, we need medicine balls, we need climbing ropes, we need overhead ladders. So it's all scaled and appropriate for the level of development of the athlete. And then we don't need fancy, 8,000 square foot air-conditioned weight rooms. We do need strength training equipment that's appropriate, okay? And certainly we're going to look at that. But so when I think this always surprises people, like, for example, when the swim teams bring me in, they're shocked at how much they can do with a $2,500 or $3,000 budget. Right on pool deck in terms of with dumbbells and stretch cord and step-up boxes and things like that. So that would be, to me, the overall structure. I am not big on top-heavy administrative structures. I want the administrative structure to be as flat as possible and as close to where the rubber meets the road as possible. So it's, and I think that's important. And the people that are the administrators can only be administrators 40% of the time. They have to be actively coaching the other 60 or teaching, okay? Because I think that's what happens. I'll give you the example of the AIS in Canberra. It might go away. I think the decision is being made this week. And I joke, 20 years ago when I went to the AIS, there was one small administration building. The last time I was there, the administration buildings dwarfed all the other buildings. It took this lot across the street where the kangaroos used to hang out. Yeah. It's an administration building. So I want to be accountable, for the money. And I think the money, we need to go to various foundations that have health initiatives, anti-smoking, better nutrition, and make this a broader initiative. So we're really looking at going and saying, okay, it's long-term athlete development, but many of the kids won't compete past 12th grade. But will they support sport? Will they be healthy? Will they be officials? Will they go on to be coaches? See, so think about how we're developing the athletes, the person and the athlete together to improve the whole sport, social, cultural milieu, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, to kind of maybe put that into a summary, we're basically taking this athletic development model, and we're using that as the vehicle to make better human beings,
to change lives. I mean, and that's in a positive manner, because we get so much negative press, and I'm working on my opening talk for GAIN, and I'm not talking about anything negative this year. I'm talking about what we can do and what we have done, and what role a physical therapist, because how physical therapists can change a person's life. I saw my son who severely broke his leg in January. What the rehab process has, he's a very bright young man getting his PhD and all that. What the rehab process has forced him to go back to do, to exercise every day. And it's changed him physically and mentally. He talks about how much more alert he is, okay? Well, again, I'm a Pollyanna. I'm 1968 was my senior year in college. That was a bellwether year, right? Martin Luther King's killed.
Robert Kennedy.
First time I vote, Robert Kennedy is killed. But my idealism didn't go away, and it never has gone away. And I think through sport and through athletic development, we can reach more people. One of my GAIN colleagues, Greg Thompson, and what he does is he calls it Rise and Shine at his little elementary school in Michigan. The kids have to pay 25 cents a week. and now it fills his whole multi-purpose room. What does he do with the 25 cents? He buys sandbags. He buys things that they use. But now parents want to come.
Great.
Right? And it's fundamental movement skills. And the emphasis is on fun, F-U-N. Okay? Well, we can do that up to including the highest level of sport. I really believe that.
That's great. It's great stuff. Just, thinking about this like long-term leg development and the long game. I know James Fitzgerald, so the founder of OPEX, he continuously talks about the long game and like being in this for long term, regardless of your age. He says even if you're a 40-year-old who's never really done any sort of consistent physical activity, and then you join a gym, he would still have that same conversation. That to him, this is the long game. This, from 40 till your last breath. Like I want this I want fitness to benefit your life, like, to be a vehicle to live a more fulfilled life. So he always talks about the long game, no matter if we're talking youth development or any other human at any other stage of their life, given their biological age. But James often talks about this too, in terms that how the intensity model, so people like just putting intensity on top of people too soon, because we all know that the intensity model gives you quick results, but it doesn't work in the long run.
Long game. We didn't use iPhones to monitor training. We watched the athlete and we talked to the athlete.
Or you had this?
Yeah, and you wrote copious notes. I mean, I have, drawers of workouts and that kind of stuff. But I think one key, and to further your point and what your colleague is saying, is that we're talking about here an athletic development program, not a general fitness program. So we're raising the standard and the level of expectation. And I think that's important. Now, everybody is an athlete. Not everybody can be the best, a college athlete or whatever. But we're going to give them strong foundations in foundational movements, fundamental movements, and then build their sporting movements on top of that. And the thing about the instant gratification society, the beauty of the foundational movements is you see big improvement rapidly. You see, so it appeals. I've seen that now with the swim clubs with the 8, 9, 10-year-olds. In 2 weeks, the parents are saying, geez, Johnny can skip now. Johnny, and then 4 months later, Johnny's lost fat, because the expectations are a little bit higher than just showing up, a lot higher than just showing up. And that's what's wrong with a lot of the fitness kind of oriented programs. So we're really talking about raising the level of expectation so that you will commit fully, not just showing up, and for me, that is a one of the things that the current generations really need to, and I was talking to a colleague yesterday, and it was about a coach, and this coach just said, "I have to leave," and he said, "Why do you?" Well, it's 5:30, and again, you work until the work is done, right? Mm-hmm. But this is what they'd been an intern at this big facility, and you got to get across from top to bottom, bottom to top, however you want to put it. It's more than just showing up. It's more than punching the clock. We're going to ask you to commit really concentrated work, to be able to do that. And, you'd ask, and I don't want to go too long here because there may be some questions that you want to ask in that. I think in terms of methodology of actual training, it's pretty clear what we need to do. I mean, I'm not trying to sell my book. Mine may be out of print by the time this goes to, in 2 days. But I'll stand on what I've said across my career in terms of methodology, simple to complex, fundamental movement skills before sport-specific skills, strength before strength, endurance, all of those kinds of things. It's not foundation on Olympic lifts in regard to strength training. It's foundation on key movements. Movement, what I have to do to reduce and produce force effectively. Yeah. Okay, and that's not a particular exercise, is it? It's a methodology. Yeah, and then what do I have to do to run faster, to be able to change direction better? Okay, and make it. I think the key thing is, if you have a national program, that you make it hierarchical, that you earn the right, as Kelvin Giles says, to go from one step to the next. Yeah. So there's proficiency required, right? Massive. You asked about screening. My philosophy is training is testing, testing is training. Mm-hmm. I do think we want to do some physical competency assessments to allow the youngster, the parents, the supporting people, and everybody involved to be able to measure progress. You want to do some basic fun, like standing long jump, a 10-meter sprint, things, where you can, that will across sports and go horizontally across sports and vertically up the age spectrum, that everybody can do and use to measure progress, So I don't know. I mean, it would, gosh, I wish somebody would give me the opportunity,
Well, if anyone in the Trump White House is listening, maybe.
Oh God, don't get me going on that. I don't want to. We have some Trumpians among your listeners, so we won't talk about that.
No, that's great stuff, Vern. And just like I get what you're saying too. That even when you're introducing fundamentals to kids, that they can get an instant gratification, that might get buy-in to the longer game. I get that too, 100%. And it's just that I wanted to kind of get the point across that you and James are both in the same boat, in that you guys always talk about the long game, and James' big thing is that introducing the intensity model too soon to any sort of individual is just not the way to go, because again it does give people this instant gratification, but he's like, then in terms of someone trying to reach their maximum physical potential, they'll plateau because they didn't have the requisite volume to support that intensity later on in their development. But just something, sports medicine, where would you see that fall? And would you see, so the overall theme I'm getting so far is personnel is number one, then depending on the geography, that would determine the kind of facility setup. But then these facilities would bleed into the schools and the communities. And then there would be most of the funding would go towards the actual personnel and the coaches before like any fancy sort of like mad sports science technology that we don't really need at those like youth levels as yet. But let's say then if it's youths that we know are like, okay, these youths could definitely make Olympic teams or pro sports, and maybe there's an academy set up now that they go to. Yeah. Would you see then the setup being there's a general performance manager who then oversees the sports medicine, sports science, sports coaches / skill acquisition, and then the physical preparation coaches? Is that sort of the setup you would envision within maybe like one of those eight facilities we were kind of talking about, that maybe the hub around the country?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I would. And words create images and images create action. So manager has it could have negative connotations.
Okay.
I would prefer to say a coordinator. So this person's job is to really get all these people in one place at one time and not have frivolous meetings, but open communication. Okay, so that we're constantly talking. Okay, Robbie has a first degree MCL sprain. What can he do? First of all, it's the first thing we go around the room. What can he do? Not what he can't do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do we have to do? Okay, sport coach, physio, biomechanist if we had one. Now we're talking at a little higher level.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Everybody, and then when we leave, we have a program for you that you see, and there's we have a specific goal as where that program's going to take you. So sports medicine and the various subsets of that are really important, but I don't want to, and I'll say this, I have many, I just was over with U.S. Tennis with my good colleague Ed Ryan, who used to be head of sports medicine at USOC, and he is there now, and we share the same philosophy that it is not a medical model, it's a performance model.
Yeah.
So, and I saw with Sherry Warner, who's the trainer with the women's Olympic ice hockey team that Jimmy Radcliffe gave me an opportunity to do work with. She never held players out of practice unless they were, and she was in the weight room, and we worked together on designing alternative programs so that when they got to the Olympic Games, everybody was ready to go.
Yeah.
There was so-and-so has, because you got to go to the coach, and you can't tie the coach's hand behind their back and say, well, your best player can only play 20 minutes. Well, like, why? When you had 8 months to prepare, so sorry, that was a little digression, but
no, it's great. It's perfect.
Everybody has a role, and that's the biggest thing today. This is, if you're designing this, you have the opportunity to design it in an optimum manner where it's truly a team, like McChrystal's book, Team of Teams. So there's really, if you haven't read the book, it's really a good book to read, because you don't have time in today's, now we're talking high performance sport. You will get past like a freight train leaving a tramp if you hold the athlete out for 3 days. I will guarantee that the Golden State Warriors are going to pay for Stephen Curry being out as long as he was. I don't know what they did or what they didn't do, but if it was only the degree of MCL strain that they said, you got to wonder why he was held out so long. Sorry. Price for that, Sorry, that's way off the subject.
No, it's all good. It's all good. With this performance, this interdisciplinary team, this performance setup, like, would you envision that they meet like every morning, kind of like you were saying there, and yes, they go through the athletes underneath their supervision? It's like, so Robbie's MCL, and everyone's on the same page, and so it's
absolutely
very, very exactly like when I was interning at Altus. That's what they did every morning at 8 a.m. They always had their it was really good, and the whole plan was mapped out for the day, and it was great communication there between.
This is
performance
30 some years ago. This is what we did with the White Sox. I mean, I was in every coach's meeting, and then the head trainer, head physio would come in, and we would all, and then and we'd have there was a thorough plan for every minute of the day. Who if so and so couldn't take batting practice, then what did they do? See, so it was always what you could do, and there's places that are doing a good job of this, but those meetings have to be really on point, because you never want to have a meeting just for a meeting, and it just it has to be really directed toward. I say again, what can they do? What can they do? What's the progress report? And then bounce ideas. Geez, I'm thinking about doing this today. What do you think? And 3 other people say, I'd really think twice, because when I had so-and-so, bingo, nips it in the bud right there. So, no, everybody's ego's checked at the door.
Yeah.
And the goal is to make the athlete better, right? I mean,
you actually brought up something that just pops right into my head. I'm going to ask you now in just a second, just on ego there. But I don't know if you read this book. It's by a really, really good friend of mine. So the Governed Dynamics of Coaching, a Unified Field Theory of Sports Preparation, by James Smith, the thinker. Do you know James Smith?
No, I
So
haven't read that.
it's an
I have
absolutely
to put it
fabulous
on
book.
my list.
And just a big shout out to John Goodwin, who got me this book. He sent it to me. I couldn't believe it. He heard that like I've saved, because it's an expensive book. It's about $90 or so, but it's well worth it. It's unreal.
No, I'll have to get it.
And John, there's James there, by the way. But John heard that like I was kind of like waiting for my birthday to get, or because I'm kind of broke with college, my master's, and John just sent me. So John, thank you so much. But in that book, James basically, like his sort of one of his main messages in that is that he feels that the segregations between all the disciplines in an interdisciplinary sports performance team will be gone in a few years. So like he's like these silos of, you know, he can't stand the word strength and conditioning. He thinks strength and conditioning coach will be redundant in a few years.
Terrible term.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So he sees that there'll just be this one global manager essentially that looks after the whole thing. So he's like, there'll be no silos between a strength and conditioning coach, the sports medicine staff, sports science, the sports coaches, and any like additional coach, a skill acquisition coach or something like that. He thinks there'll be a global manager in all of that, because what he actually, how he looks through performances, he looks at everything through first principles. So he's very based on maths and physics, and he's like, if science underpins everything, like, so it's kind of like that thing of like, if you want to know everything, know biology. But if you want to know biology, know chemistry. You want to know chemistry, know physics. You want to know physics, know maths. Yeah, and then it's just kind of goes from there. But that's a great book. You would really love that.
Okay. Well, one thing, I guess I'm not as optimistic, because what I'm seeing today around the world is silos surrounded by moats now. You know,
that's a Vernism right there.
Protecting turf. And that's one of the huge goals of game.
But that's ego, Vern. So, and that brings you to,
a lot of it is ego. A lot of it is they're worried that if they give up a little bit of themselves in their area, that they will be diminished.
Yep.
And the other part of this is kind of the Navy SEAL syndrome, the new Navy SEAL. You know, the old Navy SEAL used to be anonymous. Now you've got these guys, look at me, I shot Osama bin Laden. And it's ruining the culture, right? Because it was about we, not me.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what we have to get to. This is why I love some of my colleagues like Jim Radcliffe. Jim Radcliffe has coached Olympic medalists.
Will you tell Jimmy Radcliffe to put himself out there more?
He doesn't want to.
But but he'd be such a benefit to us.
He speaks all over the world. He does clinics, but he doesn't promote himself.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that this whole idea today of self-promotion and everything that you do, I use social media. I use social media to promote basically some of my ideas in game. I would beg any of the people that have followed me on social media to find out what any of my athletes have done. Mm-hmm. I never talk about medalists. Never talk about any of that. You know why? Because we are backstage, not on stage. And this is where the silos really, really begin, I think. I think it becomes an ego thing, you know, as opposed to let's everybody work together and make the athlete better. And it is truly athlete-centered, and we step back and just take satisfaction at the end of the day in a job well done.
Well, that brings me to the next point in question for you. And you have, what have you got, 5-10 minutes?
About 5 minutes, yeah.
Cool. So just in terms of going off the thing with ego, and in terms of like setting up these organizations, these hypothetical organizations, so let's say again like the 8 facilities and it's the main staff and whatnot, a very important aspect I would feel, and this is what I'm going to ask you, is the self-development of each individual within that team, and knowing who they are first of all, and then knowing their place and position within that team. So I spoke with Neil Rampy, who is the head of sports medicine now with the LA Dodgers. He was previously with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they had done a lot of in-house work personally as a team, together as a team, but one-on-one, like being very open, very vulnerable. And like, he's like, it's the best thing we ever did. Like, as in like, we were just boom, like in terms of like how to communicate. If somebody said something in a certain way, a certain moment, it changed in how you would perceive that if you hadn't have come to the awareness
Yep.
of, oh, maybe it's a, so it brought, basically they did, it was True Landmark, I think is the name of the company. But basically, like Neil was saying, that it was just more, they did a lot of training in self-actualization of themselves first, which then led into greater communication as a team and as a unit. So it was just, again, appreciating that everyone and everything is the way they are for a reason, you know, how the environment shapes an organism, and then therefore humans are organisms, how the environment can shape a human being's perception of reality in any given moment, from moment to moment. So like, if me and you had a row, Vern, instead of me, like previously, let's say if I wasn't aware of some of the things that came to light through that type of training, I'd be like, oh, like, screw Vern, like, you know what I mean? You know, F Vern. Whereas now, like, after going through maybe some of that process, being more self-aware of yourself, and then have more empathy and compassion and understanding, and realizing that everyone and everything is there for a reason. Like, we could have an argument, and then my new reaction or my new perception or how we respond to that is, well, so like, I don't know what's, like, Vern could have had a bad night sleep last night. There could be something going on at home. You could have got really bad news. It could be just like blood sugar regulation. It could be so many things. But now, like, I have an appreciation where I'm going to ask why, rather than try and condemn and point and say, no, it's all you guys, instead of trying to, again, understand the situation. So would you envision that? Would you try and instill that sort of ethos and that continual self-improvement? Yeah.
No question. And instead of doing it, which we've tended to do in the past and have done in the past, to say, oh, we'll do it twice a year. I think that needs to be kind of done in an organic manner, where it's done spontaneously at certain times. You know, it's like it's like the Pixar approach when Steve Jobs was there. He designed the building so people would just run into each other. You know, so. I said this when I was one organization I was consulting with. I said, you know, everybody had their own area. And I said, well, why aren't you out there helping so-and-so? Why aren't you out there watching so-and-so? Yeah. So we're all the team of teams, you see. And so, yes, I want team players, but being a team player doesn't mean I'm a yes man.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And I want learners. Okay, that's why I said experiences. And so to me, this is implicit in the whole structure of what we do. Mm-hmm. You're not going to coach 8 hours a day. Okay, what do you do? What is there a period of, like, I want to have, let's say this we're doing this with Gain. So there's an internal now, there will be this next year, Gamecast, where somebody will pose a problem, and then we'll have 3 or 4 on, and we'll give our solutions to the problem.
Like a case study.
Out to the network. Yeah. Okay. Well, you do the same thing. The beauty of today, the virtual world we live in, and we're putting together a national structure with 8 regions. So we're going to have Share Day, where what am I doing today in Lexington, Kentucky, that you want to learn about? It's only and it's got to be. It's not a half an hour in a PowerPoint presentation. It's a clip of, what do you think of this sequence of exercises? Then how do we communicate? Because look, having worked in a myriad of organizations, okay, and some toxic ones.
But those experiences are just as important.
Oh no, I can tell. I can tell you, and it's Clay Arrow, one of my Gain faculty members, and it's just about relationships, and that's what we have. But you have to work at that. It's just like I've been married, I don't know, 48 years or something like that.
Tell your wife I feel sorry.
I'm a bit distracted because my wife and I had a little bit of a disagreement before we came on about something not heated, but but that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's going to be resolved in 30 seconds because I was being hard-headed. I was being the Italian in me came up. But everybody knows, and one of the things that I think I would use, I was talking about this with one of my swim coaches the other day. I don't know if you're familiar with Strength Builder, they're out of Omaha, Nebraska. What's the name? Anyway, and I would have everybody do the Strength Builder assessment, and then share each other's results.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's my strengths? I want your strengths to complement my, you know, make up for my weaknesses and work together. You know, I'm not afraid if I have some problem with sprint mechanics, I'm going to videotape it. I'm going to get on the horn with Gary Winkler right now. Gary, what do you think? And I know he's going to run through, and I know to do it right for him, I've got to film from the side, you know, and that, and he's going to ask me 2 or 3 things. Well, yeah, this is the film, but what did you do in the weight room, or what didn't you do in the weight room?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I know Gary's like so thorough, so he is so.
You know, so I only would do that if I were prepared, because if I'm, you know, but that's the kind of person you want on the team.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, you do that. So plug Gain. This is what we're trying to do with Gain.
I know. Yeah.
You know, like it's pick up, get online, pick up the phone. You know, you've got these people that, I mean, a lot of one of my go-to people is Nick Garcia. He's a high school coach.
Yeah.
You know, but the guy knows his stuff, man, and he's on the firing line every day.
Yeah.
And that. So
yeah,
that's how you learn.
Nick's a great guy. So for any guys that know, Nick is often on the Hammer Media podcast with Martin. So I'll link to Hammer and I'll link to the Gamecast too. And just for the viewers, they probably saw me laughing when you said you're not coaching 8 hours a day, because me and Vern have had some very good conversations about coaching burnout. So that's definitely a topic we'll tackle in the
big topic right now, isn't it?
In the future,
conversation with a coach I'm mentoring.
I know you're tough on time, and I've got 3 real quick fire round questions that I just want.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Before I do that, I just want to say, for your wife, tell her I'm sorry for her troubles being married that long to you.
Yeah, she's a saint, you guys. I mean, anybody that's staying married to a coach all that length of time, you know.
All right. So 3 quick fire questions. Well, you might have to really think about 2 of them, but the first one is just what book or books are you currently reading, and what is your current top recommendation book? So what are you reading now, and what's your top recommendation?
Reading On Grand Strategy by John Lewis Gaddis. He's a historian at
On Grand Strategy, okay.
Yale University.
What's that about, Vern?
The other one that I'm reading is Heroic Leadership, this is kind of funny. It's best practices from a 450-year-old company that changed the world. That company is the Jesuits.
Showed up there?
I don't have the.
Oh, it's okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's masterful.
Brilliant.
And so I'm and then the other one, I'm going back, which I do periodically, to Catch and Catch.
Yeah.
And
that's the very one I have too.
And this is these guys are great, and I got to meet Vic Catch a few years ago, and Vic Catch. The cool part is Vic was a coach too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, those are the ones right now. So
what's your top book recommendation?
Oh, that's not a fair question.
All right, you can think about that then for the next day. You can
I mean, you know how much I love to read, and
they're all fake books in the background. That's just
yeah, that's part of my library in the background. I probably now read
you're getting
70% of my reading is outside of sport.
Yeah, I seen your book list on your blog there a while back, and it was none of them are really sports books. But anyway, I know that from our own.
There is a great sports book, though. I'll tell you, I'll get for no matter what sport, and if you're into excellence, I really recommend this book.
Never seen
it is. He's a great writer,
great,
terrific interviewer, and Grant Wall, and it's called Masters of Modern Soccer. It could be written about Masters of Modern Business.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he chose the players and the manager and very carefully, and they give deep insights into how they see the game and how, and that. And so it transcends soccer.
Great. All right, second last one. Vern, you have, for whatever reason, you've only got 1 year, and just for a fact, you've got 1 year left to live. How are you going to spend that year?
Well, with my family, I hope.
Mm.
Definitely with my family. Not, I don't, I mean, that's it. I just want to be
Huh?
around my family and,
Yeah, that's the answer I
uh,
get a lot. The answer I get is I usually family and travel around the world with the family.
yeah, I don't even know about traveling. I'd like to find out the places that, that they have great memories of things that we did together.
Yeah,
Maybe go back and do those things rather than just travel around the world randomly.
yeah, yeah.
To me, it's more, I mean, it's been interesting having my son home for 6 months because, he left when he was 18, right, to go to college and hasn't been around, and talking about the things that he remembered from growing up and
Wow.
like that,
Yeah.
so that's a great question. Yeah.
Not,
But
and well, it's
it's
not.
not,
It's
and
not.
visiting, look, the friendship, I have some special people that have been big in my life, and some of them are unfortunately passed away.
Hmm.
And anytime today that I think about one of those people and I haven't talked to them in a few weeks, I either email them or call them.
Yeah.
And so it would be family, and I would make sure that I visited some of these people that have been just wonderful to me. So
Very last one, okay? I'm in Florida and I'm close by, and I say, Vern, I want to take you out for dinner, and you can invite 5 people to this dinner, dead or alive. Who would you take to this
oh
dinner?
wow,
Who would you take to this dinner and why?
oh wow, Richard Feynman
Cool.
is one of my intellectual heroes for sure. Probably because I've been reading a lot about the Jesuits lately, and I grew up in a Jesuit parish. It would be from the religious side. It would be either Thomas Merton, who was a Trappist monk, or Saint Ignatius of Loyola. So one of those two. I'd like to have John Wooden there.
Brilliant.
Mother Teresa, and Willie Nelson.
Wow. That's a pretty good lineup.
That'd be a pretty cool group, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Willie'd have a song by the end of dinner, right?
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
question. I mean, yeah. I mean, those are people that are really have interested me. Gosh, that's sad. How many of them? Only one of them's alive. Willie's the only one alive. Huh?
Is he? Yeah, fine, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, one's dead. Gosh, that's sad.
That's great, Vern. It's great.
We might have a second dinner or something.
It won't. It's good though, because I'll be footing the bill, so I won't have too much to pay if all these people are dead. They can't eat. They're dead.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. Well, that's a fantastic answer. You'd be surprised how many people just like bail out. I can't think. So I always appreciate when people do give me 5. So Vern, listen, that was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And no doubt we'll have you on again in the future for many other topics.
Cool.
Just for myself too, best of luck with Gain now, because I know like you'll be flat out now, getting everything organized and going through it. So I know we'll definitely communicate all right through email, but this might be the last time we'll talk maybe face to face, because I know that it's a big busy time for you. But if I don't talk to you before that, best of luck with Gain, and I'll put everything into these show notes so for the viewers and listeners.
Cool. Yeah, let me know, and we'll put it up. We'll put links on my social media stuff.
Well, just stay on there while I wrap up. So just for everyone watching, thanks so much. Make sure you share this out. You subscribe to the YouTube channel. You subscribe to iTunes, whatever podcast app you like to listen to in terms of the OPEX podcast. Really appreciate your support. And obviously, if you can leave a review on iTunes, it really does a lot to get the podcast out there. Also, look up Verns podcast, Gaincast, and Hammer Media too. Martin Binger's podcast that he does with Nick Garcia. So so they're great podcasts too to link up to. So for now, from me, Robbie Burke, everyone take care, and Vern, you can say goodbye there if you want.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. See you later, guys. Take care.